Hello Wilderness! Today I wanted to go over my long distance backpacking gear. All of this gear has been on over 1,100 miles of long distance trails, including the Pacific Crest Trail and the Wonderland Trail in Washington. So it's all tried and true gear. It works for me, but of course something you have to realize is that everyone's a little bit different. So gear choices are always going to differ from person to person. That said, all of these things are solid choices. They're tried and true. You might not love them as much as I do, but they definitely work. Let's start here with the biggest pile. My sleeping bag is an Enlightened Equipment quilt, and it's brilliant. I love it. It is much lighter than most of the sleeping bags you'll find out there, and that's one place where you can save a lot of weight. The quilt design isn't for everyone. It does wrap around your sleeping pad and it clips with these little clips to kind of cinch it in. And that definitely worked for me, but you might find that in doing that you have a little bit of gaps and things that frustrate you, particularly if you're thrashing around a lot. That said, super lightweight, packable. It's great. They're all custom made. You can decide exactly what kind of sleeping bag you want, the fabric, the fill, the rating, everything. It's all made in the US. Moving on, of course, puffy is essential. This is a Mountain Hardwear puffy. Pretty good weight. I like a warmer puffy. I go for a warmer puffy and then just a wool base layer. Like most Thru hikers, most of my clothing has duct tape on it. And then, of course, a wool base layer. I went with icebreakers, which worked really well. An icebreaker top and pants. And then the last thing, and this is part of my sleeping system, thick wool socks. These live inside my sleeping bag, and the only time I wear them is when I'm sleeping. That means that they're always dry and warm. They're also thicker than what I hike in. For a sleeping pad, I've been using this Thermarest Neo Air. This is great because it's just about as light as any sleeping pad you can bring, but it's warmer by far than anything else I've seen. It's actually a 4-season sleeping mat. You can put this directly on the snow. It's really well insulated, but incredibly light. You can get 3-season sleeping pads for a little bit less money that are maybe an ounce lighter, but for the extra ounce, the added warmth is nice on those cold nights. So next big item is my tent. I've been meaning to set this up, talk a little bit more about it. It's a Six Moon Designs Twin Sisters tent. It's a tarp tent, meaning it doesn't have a bottom, but it's super lightweight and really strong. This thing has been through just some incredible windstorms and ice and snow and rain and just about all conditions you could imagine, and it's worked brilliantly. There's a bit of a trick to setting it up, so I really mean to get back to this tent sometime and talk a little bit more about it. That said, this tent has seen a lot of use. It's held up well, and I absolutely love it. Six Moon Designs is also a US company, and their customer support is awesome. We managed to break one of these straps while we were out on the trail. We gave them a call, and they had no problem mailing us some new straps to our next resupply point. Did it for free. No questions asked. Just, oh, you broke one? That's really weird. Here you go. So that was awesome. Really like the company, like the tent. Great product. Next, we have rain gear. Now, I actually have used a couple of different things for rain gear. On the Pacific Crest Trail, I actually used frog dogs most of the time. But I've also used this. This is a little bit more durable. And this is the Marmot Precip jacket and rain pants. You don't always need rain pants. It really depends on how wet you think it's going to be. For a longer trail, you know, if you're out there for months at a time, The rain pants are definitely nice, especially when it's just pouring for days and days on end. I'm glad I had them, but not everyone brings them. And if you're just out for like a week or something, maybe not such a big deal. Again, it also depends on, the climate and the season as far as what you want to do for rain gear. One thing I will say, though, is that you should definitely bring some kind of rain gear, even if it's just a poncho. You'd be surprised how many people I saw while hiking who were out there and they'd mailed their rain gear home because it was sunny, and they're just soaked. And that's miserable. And, if the temperatures plummet, it can even be dangerous. Next, Black Diamond trekking poles. I have not been that impressed with Black Diamond. I will say, though, that the trekking poles worked fairly well. The Cork grips are nice, but these tips here do wear out. The plastic part wears out, and you've got to replace them. I found that they wore out after 600 or 700 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail, which was kind of frustrating. That's a good bit of time, but still, you would expect them to last a bit longer. That said, though, they are comfortable, they're fairly lightweight, and they're extremely strong. The clips are really solid, so they're not all bad. They definitely worked, they just weren't my favorite. Snot rags, right here. Snot rags are really important. Have a couple of them. You can't go blowing your nose on tissue for 1,000 miles. You'd have to carry like a whole backpack full of tissue. So snot rag is really nice. I know it sounds gross and it kind of is gross, but you can use it for all sorts of things, and you can also kind of wash it out and clean it out regularly, and then it's not such a big deal. So this is a cotton snot rag. It's super absorbent and nice. And it's the only bit of cotton I think I have. So having a separate snot rag is nice because everything else is not really suitable. A mosquito net is definitely handy if you're going somewhere where there are mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are evil. They ruin your life. It's really awful. And it's worth having a mosquito net if there are going to be mosquitoes, because these things are extremely light. So moving on, cooking system. Titanium mug. When we left for the Pacific Crest Trail, we left with a much smaller titanium mug, and it was frustrating. So we ended up going with this one. I think this is like 750 milliliters. It's nice to have a larger titanium mug. Don't go with a 500 milliliter mug. At least 750 to 1,000 milliliters. Along with my titanium cup, I carried this for part of the trip. It's just a collapsible cup. The reason that I found this was a nice luxury, and it is totally unnecessary to have two, but it's a nice luxury because I like to have a hot cup of coffee in the morning. I can pour my coffee into this and then make my oatmeal in the cup. So it allowed me to have like a hot beverage and a hot meal at the same time. While this is something of a luxury, it's pretty lightweight and it does serve more than one purpose. One of the principles of lightweight backpacking is finding multiple uses for something. So when this collapses down, it fits perfectly on top of my titanium cup. I use this setup when I'm boiling water or heating up water. Doing this allows the water to heat up faster using less fuel, so it's absolutely worth it in that sense. And then a spork. They make long-handled sporks, and that's absolutely on my list of things that I would like to get. This worked, and it's what I used for 1,000 miles, so no big deal. But if you're in the market and you want to buy one, they make them with longer handles. Definitely worth investing in them. So moving on to our stove, this is a Soto stove. It also worked extremely well. We used it at least once a day, and it folds in really nicely. It's a great design, great stove. Definitely did the job. I will say it has this little auto igniter thing, and that did wear out. fairly quickly. So, of course, make sure you have a lighter or matches or something like that along with this. Very nice. We also fashioned an aluminum windscreen just out of like a turkey fryer pan, one of those disposable pans. Windscreen for this type of stove is very important. So as far as a med kit, I'm pretty basic. This is a roll of dental floss. You can use this to like sew up gear. You can use it to floss, obviously. Has a lot of different uses. A needle is extremely important. You can pop blisters, sew up gear. You'd be amazed at how many things you can use a needle for. It's carefully kind of folded into a piece of duct tape right here. And that way I don't lose it and it doesn't stab anything. And then along with that, a couple of pads of sting relief. When I got stung by a bee, 100% worth it. They weigh almost nothing. So that's nice to have in here as well. That's about it. I know a lot of people carry more than that. I don't really carry band-aids or anything. I feel like any cut that can be treated with a band-aid is minor enough that it doesn't need one. And any cut that is more than a band-aid is like pretty serious and you're gonna try and get out and get to a doctor. So I don't really carry anything like that. Bathroom stuff. Toilet paper. I do use a little bit of toilet paper, but I also use a little squeezy bottle full of water. You squirt this on your butt and the pressure kind of sprays off most things, gets it clean, and then you can kind of dry it and take care of things with just like a single piece of toilet paper. Really cuts down on the amount of toilet paper you use, which is great, less waste. But it also keeps your bum considerably cleaner. And if your bum isn't clean, you get all sorts of chafing and nasty stuff going on. So this was awesome. It uses maybe 2 or 3 ounces of water. So even in the desert, it really doesn't consume enough water to be a problem. And along with that, Purell. Always use it after you do your business. Most people get sick not because of bad water, but because of bad hygiene. So yes, definitely use this after bathroom breaks. It's also something that can double for like cuts and things when you have to sanitize stuff. This is a platypus bladder. I'm not sure exactly what the plural of platypus is. Platypusy, I think, probably. We used platypusy exclusively. They worked really well. They're extremely durable. Definitely liked them. You can use your platypus for water storage, especially on long water carries, but it's really a lot nicer to drink water out of a container, to like actually be able to gulp and guzzle, and it's just a lot more satisfying. No need for an expensive heavy water container though. You can just grab a Gatorade bottle or anything like that. Works brilliantly and is actually a bit lighter. And when they wear out, you just throw them away, get a new one. So that's what we did with these guys. So along with the platypus, and we carried several of these, we also took the Sawyer Squeeze, and these were great. I think most people have seen the light on these, and these are like the overwhelming favorite for water filtration. They're lightweight and they're effective. At one point, we did have the Sawyer Mini, but those didn't last very long. The Sawyer Squeeze, it has a lot higher capacity and is just easier to use. Maybe weighs like a ½ ounce more. So these have been our go-to for all water filtration. They worked well. We never got sick from bad water. Highly recommended. One problem with them though is that they can't freeze. We tried to remember to keep them in our sleeping bags anytime it got cold to protect them, and it seemed to work. One thing to note about these filters, however, is that they will clog eventually, particularly if you have really scuzzy water. It's not usually an issue if you have something short like the Wonderland trail, but for longer through hiking like the Pacific Crest Trail, you'll need to either pack the cleaning syringe or bounce it forward in a bounce box. There are other ways, of course, of cleaning these, and I think I used just about all of them when we were hiking, but none of them work quite as well as the cleaning syringe. So it's probably worth it to you to have this in resupply locations somewhere. Next, this guy right here. Now, I have kind of mixed feelings about this umbrella. It didn't make it all that far on my travels. This is one of my gear items that maybe only went 400 or 500 miles with me. There were certainly days where this was amazing, particularly in really hot, dry stretches. There were some days where I just loved this reflective umbrella. However, in practice, I've found there were several problems with it. The first one is that you don't use it nearly as much as you think you can. The reason for that is when it's hot and dry in the desert, it's often also windy. And when it's pouring rain, it's often windy. So the two times that you'd want to use this umbrella, it's windy and you can't because umbrellas don't survive very well in the wind. Another issue with it is that you either have to give up one of your trekking poles to use it, which is a bit of a bummer, or you have to lash it to your pack somewhere, which can be a little bit tricky and time consuming. So practically, it's a little bit hard to use, and you get far less use out of it than you might anticipate. If I did those sections of the PCT over again, I might still bring an umbrella with me because there were definitely times where it paid off. But on balance, I think I'd probably leave it at home. Beacons! We had people worrying about us, so we ended up taking a beacon. Obviously, it's optional. Don't take a spot. A lot of bad stories. We knew a lot of people that had problems with spots. The problem with them is that they don't always send a signal. They're not 100% reliable. So if you have people expecting you to check in, you think you've sent the signal but didn't go through, they start panicking, causes a lot of problems. This is a lot more reliable, and it's a one-time use thing. When this gets activated, it's an emergency. You flip this out, you turn it on, and it's locked in place. Someone's coming for you. They're a lot more reliable, and they have a better signal than like a spot. And of course, the advantage is you don't have people freaking out when you don't check in. You only use it if there's an emergency. It is a little bit heavy, but if you're worried about it, or if you have people worried about it, it could be a worthwhile investment, and I could certainly see how it could save your life. So it's definitely something worth considering. All right, a little bit of clothing here. Hiking shirt. Pulled this out of a hiker box, so it was free. It's awesome. It's nice, lightweight, long sleeves, which I like because you can roll them up when it's hot, but you can also keep them down to keep yourself from getting sunburnt. I'm a white boy, I get sunburnt easily, so having a lightweight, cool, but long sleeve shirt was awesome, and this has held up really well. So yeah, best free thing ever. Big floppy hat. Again, because I get sunburnt. Very nice. Make sure it has a pretty flexible brim so it's not like banging up against your pack and being annoying. But yeah, this definitely kept me from sunburning. On a long distance trek, it's silly to slather yourself in sunscreen. Just make sure that you're protected. Wool gloves, again, optional. Only if it's going to be really cold. But when it is really cold, definitely worth having. Last of all, wool buff. This thing's brilliant because, again, it's super lightweight. It's wool, so it's great for insulating, and you can wear it so many different ways. So you can have it on like this just to kind of protect your neck. You can have it on like this, provides a little more insulation, makes you look like a dork. You can also have it on like this or like this to keep your face warm. So yeah, this thing, really brilliant. It also doubles as a great pillow, as I will now demonstrate. Puffy jacket, wool buff. Pillow. All right, bulk of the stuff there. I think I've left a few items off, but that's essentially the gear that I took 1,100 miles on the Pacific Crest Trail and also on the Wonderland Trail in Washington. All of that stuff went inside a compactor bag that then went inside my pack. Compactor bags, brilliant. All the thru hikers we knew used them. They're the only way to go. They keep all of your stuff dry all of the time. They weigh less than a rainfly. And unlike a rainfly that just kind of covers half your pack, the outside of your pack, this completely surrounds all of your gear. And if you unexpectedly like fall in a river or something, your gear is still protected. So really nice. Thanks for watching. I hope that you found that informative and useful. If you have questions, feel free to ask me. Like I said, I've taken all of this gear on more than 1,100 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail and also on the Wonderland Trail. So I know it works. I know what works for me. Everyone's a little bit different. It might not work for you, and that's okay. But yeah, if you have questions about this, if you're new to long distance hiking, feel free to ask me. All right, thanks.